Good evening. How are you? Well, it's a little late. I don't know how much light I have left. I started walking to wake me up. I was in D.C. today in federal court, and I thought we had a good day. You never can tell from some of these things that are stepping stones to other places in a case. Talking about trials, the case of Citizen Trump is been set down for trial, and the trial date is going to be March of 2024. So the trial will begin and end before the campaign season ends and the election has been had for President of the United States. That's significant. Trump appeared virtually. He's always virtually, except that's kind of misleading because it sounds like virtual is true but not present. I don't know. In his case, he was on screen with counsel sitting next to him down in Florida. He was allowed to appear at a distance, and that happens at some times. And in this case, it happened on, some equivalent to Zoom video or whatever. The former president did not seem happy about the trial date, but he probably was also quite unhappy about the fact that the court said don't make any other plans. And that was referring to campaign schedules and so forth. You're going to be in this courtroom, we're going to be trying the case. So that's that. He also, the judge that is, made a ruling that you may not disclose any documents that may be provided to your counsel to any other third party. And I think there were certain limitations on how he could even see some of the documents. And this was to avoid what Trump seems to do the most, and that is to try the case outside the courtroom while a different case is being tried in the courtroom. Now, that didn't work for him in the E. Jean Carroll case, because they did exactly that. The outside man was Trump, the inside man was Tacopina, his lawyer, and this double teaming of the case didn't work. It didn't fool the judge either. And it certainly didn't fool the jury, who awarded $5 million to E. Jean Carroll. Now, so what happens if he violates these rules? The court said there'll be sanctions. Now, the normal sanctions can be money. They can be house arrest. They could be jail. Any of the above. Certain evidence might be excluded, although that's something we don't like to do in criminal cases because we do try to respect due process, which is really basically fundamental fairness. Now, while talking about that case, I mentioned E. Jean Carroll. Well, E. Jean Carroll has amended her complaint, her other complaint, and what she's done is she's added Trump's appearance at the CNN town hall, so-called, in which he basically repeated his charges against her that had been the basis of him losing the other action with E. Jean Carroll. And as soon as he did it, everybody's talking that he might do it, and that she might respond, as she has, by her counsel today, I believe. And she won $5 million in the other case. She's asking for $10 million more in this case. And you may remember that the Justice Department tried to substitute for Trump in that case because he was sitting as president at the time. Makes no sense. I mean, he was being sued as a private individual. He wasn't being sued in his capacity as president. And I don't know if that's going to cause some delay in the new case involving E. Jean Carroll's complaints. The former president said he never met her again. He said it never happened. And all of that has been contradicted by evidence in court. And Trump can make another decision to try that case outside the courtroom while it's tried inside the courtroom when it finally gets around to the point of being tried at all. In other news, what else? We have the South Carolina has decided 6 weeks is enough for a woman to know whether she's pregnant or not and have an abortion in that time. Bullshit. And there's a very peculiar thing going on. It's both uplifting, and because it's uplifting, the offense against its occurrence is scandalous. So what am I talking about? In Florida, we have the Nazi DeSantis, who has been clearing the bookshelves in Florida of books that he doesn't find satisfactory, And this evokes the 1984 notion, that is the fictional book, of limiting what people can read to know, to articulate either factual opposition, policy opposition, freedom opposition, because you have the words and the ideas and the thoughts to see that. Now, when the inauguration was had for Mr. Biden, it was only days after we'd had one of the most depraved, outstanding challenges to our American republic and our democracy, where the insurrectionists came in to try to overthrow an election that Trump lost to Biden and to make him the president when there was no fraud involved and there was no proof legally that one could challenge in this fashion. It's a conspiracy that has gone unchallenged in the sense of no one who was involved in the higher conspiracy, the people that actually designed how to incite people, the people who designed how to use the vice president to make this plan work, and when it didn't, they pivoted to violence. January the 6th, then the inauguration. At the inauguration, somewhat evocative to me of when Robert Frost spoke at John Kennedy's inauguration, we had a woman at this one, a young lady, very talented, a poet, Amanda Gorman. Amanda Gorman presented a poem that she'd written for the occasion and that she performed with her hands, suggesting motions with her hands that coordinated with the words that she spoke. And one of the reasons we're talking about this is because the words she spoke, if found in a library in Florida, not only can be removed, has been removed on the complaint of a parent. And what exactly did Amanda say? One of her opening lines, I remember, was, "Where can we find the light? Where can we find the light?" And she spoke about us as a people who cared about democracy. And she said that we had those who would seek to defeat democracy, but we would defend it. That is the kind of sentiment that DeSantis would remove from a school where other children and young adults could read and understand what this charming, young, gifted poetess wrote. And she spoke of the courage that we had to have. Who was she addressing? I think she was addressing all of America, but I think she was addressing our so-called leaders who had failed. As a great poet might choose, she didn't name names, but we all knew what she meant. When we look at ourselves, we might take a few moments to listen to her 5 minutes of insight into the launching of the Biden administration, having succeeded before the inauguration by the fact of removing and replacing the only known criminal who has occupied the White House and committed crimes from the White House. It comes as no surprise to us that he continues and he's being found out. And there are a few more people with courage. But we all have to have courage, because we'll find that that poet that we like is also struck. What will be left when the ignoramuses decide what we can read or see or hear or think. What music of voice or instrument is the edge of where their destruction ends. DeSantis, younger, striving to be more radical, about to announce for the presidency himself, is exactly the kind of man who is inimical to American freedom, who challenges America's democracy, who believes in an autocracy, who believes in the abuse of people who are fragile and tender and need help, of our young trying to learn so that someday they can perhaps give a poem at an inauguration or be the president without regard to their color or religion or sexual preference, because they got it. They have the talent. They have the gifts. They can advance the nation. They don't run it down. They don't denigrate it. They don't lie to us. They rely on the truth to show us the light. So I commend to you listening to Amanda Gorman and see if that doesn't shut out these ugly, dirty, depraved, hateful voices of the Republicans, who would have us believe they care so much for us, even as they don't want to spend a dime to help the least of us survive. So whether it's children in school, the saged in hospitals, whether it's the safety of medication, whether it's the province of a woman to master her own destiny. If we're not for these things, how can we be a civilization? Because the standard of a civilization is how we treat our own. And by the standards that are the measure of the Republican Party, the answer is badly. They would treat us all badly. For those in their conspiracy to suck as much money and power out of the system, no matter who is hurt, no matter how long, no matter how we measure the protest to it. So, let the light shine in and continue the path to tell others that this won't stand. We won't allow this to happen anymore. This is America, and you've got no business here if you don't accept the promise that was America. And so, I say good evening to you from my cathedral of trees, and if I can, I'll be out again tomorrow. Bye-bye.